Good morning and welcome. We are continuing our daily video devotions through the book of 2 Samuel with 2 Samuel chapter 23. So we are so glad to have you with us today. Now we are nearing the end of 2 Samuel and we're nearing the end of King David's story. It's been a long story that dates back to almost the very beginning of 1 Samuel. And in today's chapter, if you've read along with us, you'll know that the first part of the chapter are the last words of King David. And I'm going to do something I don't normally do here, but I'm going to read you maybe 7 verses, the first 7 verses of 2 Samuel 23. Actually, I'm going to read verses 2 through 7. So hear these words of the Lord. The Spirit of the Lord spoke through me. His word was on my tongue. The God of Israel spoke. The Rock of Israel said to me, when one rules over people in righteousness, when he rules in the fear of God, he is like the light of morning at sunrise on a cloudless morning, like the brightness after rain that brings grass from the earth. If my house were not right with God, surely he would not have made with me an everlasting covenant, arranged and secured in every part. Surely he would not bring to fruition my salvation and grant me my every desire. But evil men are all to be cast aside like thorns, which are not gathered with the hand. Whoever touches thorns uses a tool of iron or the shaft of a spear. They are burned up where they lie. And I think it's really interesting if you reflect back on David's story from the time he was a little shepherd boy who fought Goliath through all of his years serving King Saul and the difficulty that came there, and then finally being named king, and then having all these issues with his son Absalom. David's story has really been the story of a man who was always faithful to God, a man who always trusted in God's goodness and God's faithfulness to him, a man who always trusted in God's timing. And we think of David as this example of this incredibly successful and powerful military commander, and he was certainly that. But my main takeaway in reading David's story is just the remarkable faith David was always willing to have in his Lord God, the remarkable faith that really was the basis of David's life. And I think it's really interesting that here at the end of this life, when he's accomplished so many things, and it must be it should have been so easy for David to want to sit back and to rest on his laurels and the things that he had accomplished. David's reflection is that God was so good to him because he was dedicated to being faithful to God in return. And what a wonderful example we can find in King David. He wasn't always perfect. He committed sins. He was a broken person just like you and me. But every single day, he was dedicated to being faithful to God. He was dedicated to placing his trust and his hope in God. And what we can learn from King David's life is that when he did that, God was always faithful in return. So if you take nothing else away from King David's story, take this. Place your trust, place your hope, place your faith in God, and God will never let you down. Go in peace, and we'll see you on Tuesday as we wrap up 2 Samuel with 2 Samuel chapter 24.